Homie, that was one of the greatest fights I've ever seen because of the importance involved. I haven't felt this emotional about a fight in the last 15 years. Ortiz was winning that fight. I really thought it was over, but Deontay showed something that's even more important than skill or power. True heart. I'm so proud of him. Wilder versus AJ is now without a doubt the biggest fight in boxing and the biggest heavyweight match since Louis Klitschko or Louis Tyson. That's how long it's been since the heavyweight scene was lit like this. What's up, everybody? I hope you're all doing well. This is not a fanboy channel, and I for damn sure don't give a fuck about your feelings, which is why I don't cater to anybody, okay? I don't kiss anybody's ass, because I don't give a shit about your sub. And if you don't like what I said, unsubscribe. You know what? Do me a favor and just unsubscribe, period, because I've been making you way too much money with these predictions. You want to know something? I have never gotten a prediction wrong when I had actually sat down, studied the film, and really thought about the matchup, the fight, and everything involved. When I really dedicate myself, I have yet to get a prediction wrong. Now, we've all bullshitted through a whole bunch of predictions and just threw them out there and gotten them wrong. We've all done that, right? Don't get me wrong. I do get fights wrong. But when I really dedicate myself and I really think about a fight, I have yet to get it wrong. You want to know why? Because boxing is very predictable. 95% of it is very predictable. You just got to get the feelings and emotions out of it. Something that Shotgun Sandwich Entertainment has a very difficult time doing, right? Quite an embarrassing comment for an old man to leave, right? Quite embarrassing if you ask me. And a big reason why I don't tend to make post-fight videos right after the fight. Or I don't really try to commit to anything that I say, right? When I do make post-fight videos right after the fight. Because, hey, we're emotional beings. We don't get emotional. But the key is not to let the emotion take over reason. And I think we live in the age of emotionality. Maybe it's always been this way, I don't know. But it's definitely the age of emotionality that we live in today. And that makes it easy to dupe people, to con people. It makes it easy for the gambling industry to exist, right? Right. Wilder was a 3-1 favorite going into this fight. He did what he was supposed to do. Except up until the 10th round, it looked like a 50-50 fight, right? But he did what he was supposed to do. So props for doing what you're supposed to do, right? This was mismatch territory, basically. This was a borderline mismatch on paper. It really was. But so many of you got so emotional and into your feelings about Luis Ortiz and into your feelings about Deontay Wilder, the dislike for Deontay Wilder and this Cuban fetish, that you thought Ortiz was the favorite. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand picking Ortiz. I can understand why people picked him. Some people did because, hey, he had a chance, but not really. Not a good enough chance for me to roll the dice with him. So you got people who basically overrated Luis Ortiz, right? Look, if you pick Luis Ortiz, yeah, you should eat your crow, eat your humble pie, and give Deontay Wilder credit because you underestimated him. But don't go completely overboard and start acting like, you know, because you overestimated Luis Ortiz, now you're going to overestimate Wilder to compensate. Like, two wrongs don't make a right, right? Try to try to control yourself and your fucking feelings, boxing wave. You overrated the shit out of an old C level 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 basic boxer. Slow. With no punching power. Well, good punching power, but nothing special. Fat, out of shape, drug free. Did I say old already? I can't stress that enough. Can I? Did that look like a 37-year-old fighter in that ring? Did it? Who can we compare him to? Derek Chisora, right? Derek Chisora has basically got that kind of a frame, doesn't come in shape into his fights. But man, Derek throws a lot of punches. He tries very hard. He's tough, right? He fights like his age. I mean, he's slowed down, don't get me wrong, in the last few years, but he fights like his age, right? His size, his frame. Does Luis Ortiz fight like that? Why not? Because he's 45, if you're lucky. If you're lucky, he's 45 years old. He for damn sure looks it. Anyway. The heavyweight, I'm not saying that there aren't very good heavyweights on the come up that we're going to hear from in the next, maybe in 5 years or so. But the current crop of the top 10 heavyweights today are weak as shit. They're very limited. There's talent there, don't get me wrong, but like the level of boxing is very poor. Which doesn't mean that it can't make for exciting fights, because surely it does, but people were booing this fight. Now, the last few rounds and the ending was very dramatic and exciting, and knockouts erase memories, but 80% of that fight was dreadful. It was. Don't get me wrong, the tension was in the air. It was tense. Especially if you were emotionally involved, it meant something to you, and that's fine. But all those people that were handed out free tickets right outside of the arena, who didn't really cape for either guy and were just hoping to see a good fight, they were booing, weren't they? So stop overrating the arena selling out. It didn't sell out. They handed out a shit ton of free tickets right before the fight. And those people booed because they were just there for the show, not either one of the guys. They were there to see a good show. And they didn't think they got that till the very end. Now, I myself, I enjoyed the fight. I thought it was a good fight, not a great fight, along the lines of, well, Groves, Eubank. That kind of a fight as far as the excitement. On average, anyway. But, you know, what you had in that ring was Deontay Wilder, athletically A-level, boxing skill-wise, D-level. Maybe I'm a little harsh. C-level. Technical boxing skills, C-level. A-class athleticism versus D-level athleticism and C-level boxing skills. This was not a fight fought at a very high level in a technical standpoint. It wasn't a fight fought at a very high skill level, but because of both guys' deficiencies and how poor they were in certain areas, they matched up fairly evenly and made for an awkward, kind of ugly, but explosive and sometimes exciting fight. Now, if this was two A-level boxers, B-level boxers with A-level athleticism, the fight would have been very exciting for, the duration thereof. Probably. Obviously, a lot also depends on their boxing styles, but if these guys were on that level, both of them were on the same level athletically or on a high level athletically and skill-wise, technically, this style matchup would have been a lot more exciting. It would have been a much better fight. But, excitement is subjective, right? It's about how excited you get. So when you had Vladimir Klitschko, a foreigner, showing you great athleticism and great boxing skill for 10, 15 years, because he was a foreigner and you don't like him because you didn't like him because of that, you didn't feel like cheering for him, you just felt like hating on him, it wasn't exciting to you. But, he genuinely sold out 50, 60,000 seats, 30, 40,000 seats, right? Every time he fought in Germany. And I don't ever remember the Germans booing him. Ever. Right? So, it's subjective, but if you're keeping it real, Vitaly Klitschko's era was far more exciting than this era. And objectively speaking, and the skill level was far better than what you're seeing right now. That's just being objective. But, because people are fanboys and they're nationalistic fanboys who see the world through colored glasses, they're excited, right? So that's that. But as far as, Wilder and Ortiz going back to their levels, Deontay Wilder is very athletic. Like, very athletic. His balance is poor sometimes, but those are technical deficiencies. That's not because of lack of athleticism. But his boxing skill, he does some things that A-level boxers do. There are some things in his game that really surprise me. But overall, his technical boxing ability is probably C-level. Not very good at all. And then you have Luis Ortiz, who athletically is very poor. Very poor. He only really has 2 or 3 hard rounds in him, right? The fight was fought at a very slow pace, and as soon as he was forced to fight at a higher pace, or he took the chance and tried to stop Deontay Wilder, after that round, what was it, the 7th round or something, he had nothing left. He was done, right? After 1 hard round or 1.5 hard rounds, if that, he was done. Very slow feet, slow hands, not a very good punch output. Very poor stamina. Very poor stamina. And, he looks out of shape. And whatever the case may be, and it's definitely a combination of things, not being on PEDs anymore, and, just being old and not being able to really go through a very, very tough, demanding training camp to whip yourself into some great shape where you don't leave everything out in the gym. He's just, I criticized him for coming into the fight flabby, but this is probably the best he can do at this point in time. It is what it is, man. Deontay Wilder fought a fucking old man. That's, honestly, C+, B-level boxer. When you look at Ortiz, what did he do in this fight? What punches did he throw in this fight? 1, 2, right? All night. That's all he did. 1, 2, 1, 2. And the only time he threw a right hook, he fucking damn near knocked Deontay Wilder out. The only time he threw a right hook.
He landed and almost knocked him out. Why didn't he throw the right hook more? Was it because he's not very good with that punch, or was it because it was in the contract or something? I don't know. But what we saw was a basic 1-2 puncher, right? Very basic 1-2 puncher, robotic 1-2 puncher. Fact. I know people are gonna get like butt hurt and shit and call you a hater, but whenever there is a basic 1-2 puncher, the same people that are gonna get butt hurt, and a guy that they root against, let's say, they never fail to point that out, right? Basic 1-2 puncher. Very basic 1-2 puncher who, you know, I think I had made a comment about him not knowing how to fight an orthodox fighter. No, I think he knows that he needs to get his foot on the outside, take the outside angle if he wants to line up the left hand. I think he understands that, but it's really his lack of athleticism that limits his ability to do that. He's just not fast enough to be able to do that. And the problem with Deontay Wilder, and I don't think it's deliberate, I think it's just a function of him not being very well schooled, but it works in certain ways. The way he stands with his feet very wide apart, it makes sense to drop to your opponent's level so that his head is lined up with, when it comes to vertically lined up with your punches. So it makes sense to get a little bit lower when you're fighting a shorter guy, right? You don't want to be punching down because that's stupid. But generally what you want to do is just bend your knees, bend your legs, right? To get down to that level. But he does bend his knees, but he also puts his feet very wide apart. And that posed a problem for Luis Ortiz. And I think it's incidental. It's just a function of Deontay Wilder's stance. I don't think it was deliberate because he just does it all the time. But in reality, what happened was that Deontay Wilder's front foot was so far ahead of his head, and he has a tendency to also lean back and jump back. It made it difficult for Luis Ortiz, who has very slow feet, to take the outside angle, right? He had to get around that foot. And, he had a significant reach disadvantage. So he was taking the inside angle a lot, and he tends to do that because as a short, well, 6'3" is not short, but you know what I'm saying. By comparison, being the much shorter guy against Wilder or Malik Scott, he often chooses, because his feet are slow, he chooses to take the shortest way to the target, and he just steps and takes the inside angle and just steps right in, right? Because he'd have to step around that foot of Deontay Wilder or Malik Scott, and it's just his feet aren't fast enough. His lack of athleticism makes him look like less technically sound. It makes him less of a boxer technically, actually. These things go hand in hand a lot. So, you had a southpaw who showed you, because Deontay Wilder's footwork isn't all that good either, that he wanted to take the outside angle. And when it was there, he took it. And he took it a lot. And he was able to land the left hand on Deontay. But as the fight wore on, or sometimes Deontay was actually moving his feet, and it was too difficult for Ortiz to step around that lead foot of Wilder, he just barged straight in. And as the fight wore on, and he got even, more tired and slower, he was just, had less and less lateral movement and was stepping straight in more and more, which not only robbed him of his power on the left hand, it also lined him up for Deontay Wilder's right hand. And you saw what happened. And it was the same thing as in the Szpilka fight. I don't think Szpilka got tired necessarily. I think it was Ronnie Shields in his corner just pushing him to attack, to expose himself. Because in my opinion, Ronnie Shields was on the fucking payroll, and he was there to make Deontay Wilder look good. But that's just my opinion. But factually, what happened was that Špilka started to take the inside angle and lined himself up for Deontay Wilder. He basically just walked into Deontay Wilder's right hand. And the same thing happened in this fight. Now, I had speculated that that maybe Ortiz was paid to take a dive, and I don't think so. I don't think that's what happened. I think he came to win, and I think it was just his lack of athleticism and, the fact that he's old and slow with poor stamina and all those other liabilities that I've been talking about, that really made him more vulnerable as the fight wore on, from not only athletic but also technical standpoint, and Deontay Wilder took advantage. So props to him. But you could easily see how 5 years ago Luis Ortiz would have annihilated Deontay Wilder, right? Because he would have been fresh enough, athletic enough, fast enough, had good enough stamina and good enough PEDs to have destroyed Deontay Wilder. That's what would have happened, right? And about that 7th round, I think it was the 7th round. I don't think they should have stopped the fight, and I'm glad they didn't. However, had the roles been reversed, they would have stopped. They would not have allowed Deontay Wilder to tee off on Ortiz the way Ortiz teed off on Deontay Wilder, right? The fight would have been stopped. Just like Anthony Joshua, had the roles been reversed, he would have been stopped by Klitschko in the 6th round, right? So this is where the fix comes in. A lot of fans out there are too emotional, too unimaginative, too simple to understand what it means to fix a fight. You don't necessarily have to have the B-side taking a dive for the fight to be fixed. There are many ways to fix the fight, and corruption is the best way. So, but I'm not saying that the fight should have been stopped. All I'm saying is that had that been Wilder, the fight would have been stopped. And the fight was stopped early, too quickly, when Deontay Wilder knocked down Luis Ortiz, right? I mean, in my opinion, Deontay Wilder was going to win that fight anyway, even if they allowed Luis Ortiz to continue. So don't get me wrong there. But that's just my opinion. A lot of you disagree with my opinion all the time. So and if you ever disagree with my opinion, don't start disagreeing now, right? You know what I'm saying? Don't be a hypocrite. Like, if you think my opinion is sometimes valid, then don't argue too hard. You know what I mean? So I thought they should have given Ortiz a chance to beat the count. And let's see what happens. I think Deontay Wilder would have stopped him, but I've been wrong before, right? And all of you who said that the stoppage of Klitschko on those 2 rabbit punches by Anthony Joshua and a push jab, when Klitschko was ducking and dodging, slipping and sliding, everything that Joshua was throwing as he was about to punch himself out and fall over. All of you who said that was a just stoppage, you were probably watching that 7th round and screaming for the referee to stop the fight, right? No, you weren't, because you're a hypocrite. You don't keep it real. So whenever you come to my channel, you feel a certain sense of butthurt, okay? Not because of me, because you're bullshit, okay? And shout out to those who do keep it real. But basically what I'm saying is that Deontay Wilder was protected, right? Because when Luis Ortiz had him on Queer Street, the referee allowed Deontay Wilder to hold. Holding is illegal. You can't do that, right? Split him up, give him a warning. If he does it again, split him up again, give him another warning. If he does it again, split him up and take a point. If he does it again after that, split him up, take another point. If he does it again after that, split him up, disqualify him. Those are the rules. Those are the rules. But, obviously, the rules are selectively implemented, okay? And then, to boot, I think it was the beginning of the 8th round. Forgive me if I get these rounds incorrectly. I only saw the fight once. And once again after that. you know, after the Luis Ortiz damn near knocks out Wilder, and the next round starts, the referee calls in the doctor to look over Deontay Wilder. Wait, what? Hold up. So, if you really thought that you needed to have a doctor look him over at the beginning of the 8th round, then you should have stopped the fight at the end of the 7th, right? Right. If you think the doctor needs to get involved and you need to take a look at him, you take a look at him when he's getting pounded, not after he had a minute to recover. So if you didn't stop the fight to have the doctor take a look at him at the end of the 7th, what the fuck are you doing calling the doctor in at the end of the 8th? Well, you're protecting Deontay Wilder, you letting him recover, right? Corruption in boxing. Okay? Maybe Luis Ortiz would have stopped him. Deontay Wilder he still had no legs. He was still buzzed. They gave him that extra time to recover. I mean, I don't think Ortiz would have stopped him, but, the fight wasn't fought on a level playing field. You understand? The fight was fixed. And then we look at the scorecards, and Deontay Wilder is up on the cards, right? When he clearly lost. What did he win in that fight? 2 rounds? Even the round where when he knocked Luis Ortiz down, he was losing that round. So if you've ever given 10-9 rounds where there was a knockdown, that was a 10-9 round to you, right? Right. Yeah, right. So Deontay Wilder, the fight was fixed, but Luis Ortiz wasn't in on it. They took his PEDs, okay? They weakened him. They blood drained him, because you can't tell me that taking the guy's blood 7 times in a month during the training camp, you can't tell me that doesn't deplete, especially an old guy like that. That's off his PEDs now. And he doesn't have that extra boost when it comes to recovery, right? Which is why he didn't have any stamina in this fight. Duh. So that's how they fixed the fight. They compromised Luis Ortiz in every way, shape, or form. And I feel like I was correct in my prediction, saying that Luis Ortiz on a level playing field would have a very good chance of winning this fight. But because there was no level playing field and he was compromised and Deontay Wilder was protected, that little bit made a difference in an otherwise 50-50 fight. That little bit took a 50-50 fight and made Deontay Wilder a 3-1 favorite. But people are too emotional. People are too dumb. People are too dishonest. People don't know dick about boxing to be able to call it like it is, you know what I mean? Because they just get excited because they're in love with these people. They're not here for boxing, right? They're not here to recognize style, ability, technique, the sweet science, right? I mean, they yap a whole lot about that shit, but they don't know anything about that. They're here to worship gods, right? Deontay Wilder is a god for a lot of these people because, hey, a lot of them need that in their life. But anyway, Luis Ortiz was never all that he was cracked up to be. It's the, ever-present Cuban fetish that has you guys always overrating the Cubans. Always. I'm not saying they're not good fighters, but you're always giving them too much credit. Most of you anyway. And because you did that, and you feel like a dummy now you're going to fucking jump Deontay Wilder's dick and overrate him. It is what it is, man. But, I've always kept it real about Deontay Wilder. I mean, if you watch my videos in the past, I've called him a bum and I've called him a very good fighter. A good fighter, right? I've done both. Why? Well, because sometimes he fights like a bum and sometimes he fights like a very good fighter. Okay? But most boxing fans are just simpletons and they don't understand the nuances or what it is that they're looking at. I told you he was going to be cautious. He was going to take his time. And another thing about corruption and being cautious, this is what a lot of people don't seem to understand. And then this happens with guys like Canelo or Deontay Wilder. They sit there and they praise him for like giving away early rounds like boxing way, right? He doesn't really understand what he's looking at. but he's a nice guy, and he's well spoken, and whatever. He caters to his audience, and it is what it is. So people think that that's credible because they can relate to him. That's not how you get credibility. But anyway, maybe in an overly emotional world, you do. Look, praising Deontay Wilder for taking it slow, taking it easy, taking his time, giving away early rounds, and taking that out of the context of corruption is ignorant. Because Deontay Wilder has the luxury of taking it slow, right? Just like Canelo has the luxury of taking it slow against Khan or Alfonso Gomez, right? They have the luxury of doing that because they know that if they lose 4 rounds on the cards, that's an even fight, right? So Deontay Wilder doesn't have to do anything, and he's going to win rounds anyway. You understand? So praising him and taking that out of the context of the obvious corruption that's been there and was here in this fight as well, tells me that the only reason I listen to you and your videos is to sharpen my tools. You know what I mean? So, it is a tactic, no doubt about it. It's part of his strategy, and it's wise to do that if you're a puncher and you only have a puncher's chance. But let's not blow it out of proportion or take it out of context, okay? But people, even the people picking Wilder, overrated Ortiz at the very least, and a lot of people underrated Deontay Wilder. Even forgetting the corruption and the fact that Deontay Wilder is a protected fighter, that his opponents are undermined, that he's been allowed to duck all these fighters because, he's been exposed so many times already. There is virtue in what he does, and I've always said this, that his handlers know exactly what they have, and they tailor their plan, not just the game plan, but the overall plan of running his career. Basically, they tailor it to fit well within his limitations, to not expose his limitations to a point where he loses, right? So they avoid certain fighters, they deplete other opponents, they make sure to get friendly referees, this and that, and blah, 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 blah. All that other good stuff. But I gotta go. Somebody's here. Anyway, was a good fight. Deontay Wilder deserves credit, but, he did what he was supposed to do. Let's not blow it the fuck out of proportion. Deontay Wilder did what he was supposed to do. Take it easy. Thank you for listening.